Hey everyone, Xavier here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go over more of the 4K collection, going from O to R this time. Not much to say. I did say in the last video that I was thinking about doing a stream for, adding up the prices of all the movies in my collection. The only way I would do that though is that if it's sort of in this format, I just go on my phone and do that. The thing is, like, my computer can only have so much space. It's old. There's not a lot I can install to program. It's really, or else like it will crash. Like literally, this computer's on life support, so it's hard to really do programming like that. So I may do it, as a whatever, you know, because there's not no harm in doing it, but just for warning, it will sort of be like this type of format. That said, let's just get started. So up today we have Old. If you know this movie, M. Night Shyamalan, it was after Glass came out, he released this, and people start to think that maybe he's not as good of a director as he claims to be, even though like that's debatable. I love M. Night Shyamalan. I defend a lot of his movies for the most part. With the case of this is one I always defend because of how hard it is to sort of do a movie like this. If you don't know, it's about these group of people that go on an island and they start to age very fast within a day. And, they'll start to die and stuff. And the thing is, it's hard to make, very emotional, heavy movies these days. Not to say that, they don't exist, but you have to have that audience, that type of audience is very limited. Not everyone's going to want to see a depressing movie. And the problem with big studios like Universal and stuff, they want every person they can get as much as they can. So M. Night Shyamalan decided, hey, I'll just making this movie half and half lighthearted, half serious. And some people weren't a fan of that. There's a lot of goofiness. There are some scenes that are a bit over the top, but there are also a lot of scenes that are very heavy and a bit disturbing. So it was a weird mixed bag in terms of what he was trying to do. I think it's still well directed, the shots and the music. And I will say the acting, some of it's not the best, but some of it's also pretty decent. When it's the emotional stuff, it hits me. It hits hard. I get why people would have wanted a bit more serious, or just maybe tone down some of the harder stuff if they're going to go for a lighter approach. But honestly, like, I don't think this movie is bad. I think it's honestly a pretty like ambitious film and a very heavy one. Like, it's not a rewatchable film. Oh yeah, like, very fun to watch, but it was an interesting movie. I'll say that. Up next is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Not much to say. This is a fantastic Quentin Tarantino film. Some people will say it's one of his weaker ones because not much is happening. Margot Robbie's in the movie for no reason. Oh, Sharon Tate does nothing in this movie. I think that's sort of the point of the marketing. It misleads you thinking there's something going to happen with her, but that doesn't happen. At the end, the ending's great. Everyone loves the ending. But it is definitely a slow burn movie. But as much as I might not be a fan of some slow burn movies, with the case of this one, the 60s LA vibe is very relaxing. Like, it's just, you can just watch it. It's like a movie you can put on the back burner and just enjoy it. You might not, just have a drink, it's not, just relax. Like, it's just in this sort of vibey movie. That's how I view this movie. And it's one of my favorite Tarantino films because of this. I think Django is still the best one, in my opinion. But this is still great. This is a fantastic movie from Tarantino. Up next, we have Onward. I really liked this one. This was a Pixar movie that came out right when theaters were about to shut down during 2020. Like, it came out the week before the lockdowns were, released. So it had a very bad opening weekend, and then the second weekend, it made like less than $1 million because that's when all the theaters start to basically close down. And some people kind of forgot about this movie. It was very much slept upon. I think people forgot about it more than the other Disney Plus Pixar movies that came out later. Personally, I think this is a great one. I know why some people don't like it. People don't like the cast. They don't like Tom Holland and Chris Pratt. Even though I actually think they work well for the characters that have chosen. Yeah, it's a bit weird that you got Tom Holland and Chris Pratt. These are big A-listers in a Pixar movie, but I mean, there's A-listers in Pixar movies in general. It's not, the most shocking thing in the world. Um, yeah, the world building could be better. It could have been a bit more interesting, but I do like the emotional story and the conflict and the adventure in general. It was a fun movie. I really like Onward. It's one of my favorites of the modern era of Pixar. Up next is Overlord. If you've got about this movie, this was a um, there was rumor it was supposed to be of the Cloverfield franchise, but it was a standalone thing. At the end of the day, it is basically a Nazi zombies the movie. It's I think directed by no, I thought it was a different guy. Um, yeah, like it's I'm creative side I don't really care. It's just produced by J.J. Abrams though. Um, I have to rewatch this movie again to sort of get refreshed. I remember what happens generally in the movie. Like the first third starts as a typical World War II movie, but then the zombie stuff starts happening and it's crazy. However, I think my issue is that it was not crazy enough. I think that's the thing is, you have Call of Duty Nazi zombies and you have a lot of zombie media. You got to really go big or go home with that type of category. With Overlord, I think there was a great like spot of potential, but I think the problem is that it's either they took it too seriously or not serious enough. I think it should either be super over the top or super deadline serious. And actually, it was a bit. Actually, that was the problem. It was too serious, and like they didn't have much create. There wasn't a lot of creativity. It felt a bit generic. The characters were a bit bland. Like the only cool stuff was the zombie, like horror stuff. But that's about it. It's a very average, okay movie. Like it's not a bad movie. Like I'm not gonna go and say, wow, you don't know anything if you don't like if you hate or if you love Overlord. It's like it exists. It's an okay movie. I just wish it had more happening, in my opinion. Up next is Parasite. There's not much to say. This, of course, won Best Picture. It is a masterpiece. I know there's a Criterion Collection Blu-ray, but I got the 4K from Universal, which is a pretty good 4K for cheap, by the way. Like it goes like for $20. Like it's a very nice one. It is a shame that the actor who plays the father in the movie has died. It's really sad because I think he was the best character in the movie and the best actor in my opinion. There's really not much to say. It's not the most rewatchable film in my collection, in my opinion. I love the first two thirds, but the third act is way too stressful that I can't rewatch. Like, oh my god, like I want to watch this movie again and again. It's like no, the third act is so stressful. Like, it's kind of like it's like sort of people who would like I won't watch Schindler's List or something like that. It's too stressful. So that's Parasite. Fantastic movie. Not much to say, but everyone knows about this movie. Up next is The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson and directed by Roland Emmerich. This is a fun, campy like war movie. Takes place during the, I think it's the American Revolution. I was about to say the Civil War, but that's not it. American Revolution against the British. It's Mel Gibson. It's Roland Emmerich. Those two names combined, you should expect something that's a bit more, obviously as the name implies, patriotic and a bit over the top. You shouldn't take it super serious. It's not doesn't mean it's bad. It's actually quite good if you're going for that sort of vibe of a war movie. There's some decent drama. The actions kind of is really cool at times. The actors, do their roles well. I forgot the actor who plays the villain. He's great. Heath Ledger's in it, and Mel Gibson. I as much as he's a controversial guy, I really think he's a good actor and a very charismatic guy. So, like I think The Patriot's a great one. I say check it out. Very much probably one of Emmerich's best movies, in my opinion, aside from Independence Day. Speaking of great movies, the Peanuts movie. The best blue sky film, in my opinion, even after Nimona, which obviously I would like to have in my collection, but there's no Blu-ray of it. Netflix, you really got to put a Blu-ray of this. With that said, Peanuts movie, there's really not much for me to say that's bad. There's no like it's the Peanuts movie. I don't know what you're gonna expect. There's no big drama. There's no big theme. It's the Peanuts. If you know the Peanuts, you understand why it's a very charming franchise and the characters are lovable. And I would say maybe the stuff with Snoopy in the plane and his imagination gets a bit too long and winded. but that's just them adapting stuff from the cartoons and comics. And that's the thing. This is probably one of the best adaptations of any like comic strip or show. Like it's very much in spirit of the franchise. They don't modernize it much at all, aside from maybe some modern music. But it's not like they're playing video games or something like that. So in general, I love the Peanuts movie. I think it's fantastic. All right, here's an odd one here. Train to Busan presents Peninsula. Now, everyone probably has heard about Train to Busan. It's a South Korean zombie movie set on a train. Some people might have not known. Well, obviously, people who watched that movie may know about Peninsula, but if you don't know about Peninsula, it is sort of a sequel. Not really. The characters from the first movie, I still haven't seen Train to Busan yet. I still need to get my collection. I know there's a 2-pack for this, but I'm not exactly, have like so much money to spend on every 4K version. The case of Peninsula, basically it's sort of like a spin-off or it continues off the events of the first film in terms of the zombie apocalypse has happened, but the characters are completely different. It's different characters, different scenario, and it's okay. Like the thing is, like I haven't I haven't watched Train to Busan, so I can't really judge that one. But I can say with this one, it's not amazing. Like I think the production value is great. I think the whole like South Korean zombie that sort of story that they did was, well, the story is kind of generic. It's you see a zombie movie, every zombie movie is sort of starting to feel the same. The villains are like the faction, like the bandit faction or whatever it is. That was the most random. Like the motivations were all over the place. I have to rewatch the movie again, but I remember like the main leader had like this weird motivation and it flip-flopped and it just became on the generic side. I do like the characters. I like the main character, how he has to work with this person that he felt he screwed over in the past, during the start of the apocalypse, and has to reluctantly have to, make amends. I do like that aspect, and I do think it's generally like it's a decent zombie movie. Like zombie movies, you can have bad movies, you can have great movies. This is solid. I think this is a solid solid option. I mean, I don't think as good as Train to Busan because I don't think it's as interesting as a movie set on a train where the zombies are happening instead of just the entire city's overrun. We've seen that before, and that's also why I think people don't talk about Peninsula a lot. So there's that. I'm just gonna actually get some water here. All right. Coming up next, we have Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. This 4K is so infamous among collectors. It is considered a horrible conversion. Disney's not exactly the best with conversions of their past films. I heard about the good things about James Cameron's stuff, but man, this is considered a rough conversion. And I watched it and I can see the issues. However, I got it because I love this movie. I love the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie a lot. I didn't have it in my collection before, so it's for me it was worth it getting the 4K, the Blu-ray, and the digital for this movie. Like I don't have much to say. Everyone knows about Pirates of the Caribbean. It's a fantastic adventure action adventure movie, and Johnny Depp's classic as Jack Sparrow. In that first movie, even if you don't like the sequels, they're fantastic. And speaking of the sequels, they really should start putting them out because the only sequel that we have on 4K is Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. I kind of like this movie. I know some people are not a fan of the latest movies after the third film. I hate the fourth movie. I will agree the fourth movie is terrible. But the fifth movie, I actually say, was actually in the middle of the franchise for me. It's actually pretty decent. It's got issues. It has some strange pacing and some strange plot points and everything. And some characters may not be as, enjoyable as others, but I do think, just a sec, this disc has popped out. I do think that, generally speaking, this is a pretty good Pirates movie. I wish that they talk about, if they're ever going to do a sixth movie, if Johnny Depp will return to the character one more time before, it ends. But, even if it ends on this point, I wouldn't say it would be a bad way to end the series. But, I love this franchise, even though the fourth movie I'm not a big fan of. And I just hope that, we just get one more. All right, next up is Platoon. This is a great war movie. The conversion for 4K I heard is also pretty rough. But I think it's because they don't like DNR. A lot of people who collect 4Ks do not like, digital noise reduction. So they changed the picture quality so it looks cleaner and sharper, but it's not natural. And apparently they used this for this movie, and maybe so, but honestly it looks good, so it doesn't really matter too much in my opinion. And Platoon's just a great movie. I think I watched this when I got the 4K. It's a fantastic war movie. It's one of my favorite films in that genre. The cast, Willem Dafoe's great. The conflicts and just Oliver Stone's direction. It's kind of a shame that Oliver Stone sort of fell off in terms of his filmmaking. I mean, Savages. Anyone? Do you remember that movie? It's not very good. So that's Platoon for you. Not much to really say about that. It's a great film. Up next, we have The Princess and the Frog. I really love this movie. I think it's a bit underrated in my opinion because it's the last big 2D animated film by Disney. Yes, there was Winnie the Pooh from 2011, but at that point, Disney knew that they were not going to make any more hand-drawn films after this. So for the last hand-drawn, major film by Disney, I would say this is a great one. I wouldn't say the songs are the best. I like some of the songs. I think some songs are not that good. And, some would say they prefer, Tiana shouldn't have turned into a frog. It's racist. Whatever. I don't really care about that idea. I think it's still a fun movie regardless. And I'm still wondering what's going on with that Tiana show that's on Disney+. They haven't said anything about it at all. It's been years since they announced it. I don't know what's going on with that. But in general, I do hope that Disney does come back to 2D animation because even on 4K, this movie looks great. It's a fantastic looking movie. And this came out in 2000, no, is it 2009, 2009. I think it came out 2009. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe it's 2008, but I think it's 2009. Regardless, it looks fantastic, and they really should go back to the animation at some point. Up next, we have Prometheus. This is a bit of a harder movie to find on 4K. It's one of the earlier films to come out on the medium, and it's very limited as a result. It's also not the best conversion to 4K. Ridley Scott didn't put as much effort with this film compared to his others. There's also the fact that this is a weird one because this is I think this is a U.S. import. This is not one you can find in Canada. This was actually released by this version at least was re-released by Disney. And you know what? It's a pretty. I always sort of liked Prometheus. I know a lot of people weren't a fan of Prometheus because they thought they were getting an Alien prequel, which they are, but at the same time, it's not a direct answer one. And I think that really bugs me. The fact that people were so impatient with the trilogy that Ridley Scott was planning, where he was by the end of the third movie, we'll get to the point from the first movie where the ship crashed. The problem is that people thought, we're just going to get one movie and it just will, show us everything, which is kind of silly. And because of that, we're never going to get a proper conclusion to it. I think, Alien Covenant, I thought it was really good, and I really think Prometheus was very interesting. It's well directed. The scale, the actors, and some characters were hit and miss, but I think they were generally good. Michael Fassbender was great. Some of the world building was interesting. I really wish they continued that franchise. I know there's a new movie coming out this year, but Freddy Alvarez directing, I am not looking forward to that. Next up, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I don't need anything to say about this. Everyone has watched this movie, and everyone knows it's a fantastic return to DreamWorks. There's not much. I don't think there's a flaw. I think it's better than the Spider-Verse movies, in my opinion, because it's more standalone. It's fantastic. There is really not much I can add to say, how great the movie is, or if there was any flaws. There's really no flaws. Not every joke works. That's just the point of comedy, though. that's the thing. Like, it's a fantastic movie. The animation's great, the villains, and just the general like maturity. Doesn't play things down for kids. It acts mature when it is. Up next, we have Rambo: Last Blood, the only Rambo movie I have in my collection, and I'm not sure if it's the only one on 4K. I've always had conflict. I don't know if there isn't a 4K. Oh yeah, that's right. There is. All the movies, all the other Rambo movies are on 4K. I only have this one because it was $10 when I got it back in Ottawa, and the other movies are expensive, and I find it weird there's never a collection. Like, I heard there was a collection, but it's either super rare or it doesn't exist. Regardless, I just find it weird that they never have a proper complete collection on 4K. But even then, I'd only probably get the first film. Now, as for Last Blood, in my opinion, it's an okay movie. I just don't think it's a Rambo movie. It feels like a very typical revenge thriller that just happens to be under the Rambo name. I think, having the Mexican cartel being the villain's not super interesting. Like, it sets up for a darker story, and I do like that, it does go into a darker place. And like, they have some really gritty violence and themes. But generally speaking, it's not like wow, this was the way to end the franchise. Wow, like, really, this is the way to end the Rambo franchise, not the fourth movie that was really back to the roots. This is more like let's take someone else's script and just slap Rambo on it, and that's what it feels like. Regardless, Stallone's great, the action's good, the direction's fine. Like, it's a good revenge thriller movie. I just think it's a weird way to say it's a Rambo movie, but whatever. Next up is Red Dragon. I think this is a great movie. Yes, Brett Ratner directed this, and Brett Ratner is a piece of crap, but the score by Danny Elfman, the acting from Edward Norton, Bob Hoskins. No, not Bob Hoskins. He's not in this movie. Anthony Hopkins. And what's his name? Ralph Fiennes as the Tooth Fairy. Fantastic. These are just great like actors, and the characters that they're playing are just great. I find it more rewatchable than Silence of the Lambs, in my opinion, since I think it has a bit of a faster pace, and I do love the more sensitive side of Ralph Fiennes' performance. I love his performance, like, almost steals the show. The third act is a bit like strange, but like, that is part of the book, even though it's like it feels very tacked on. Regardless, though, if you haven't watched Red Dragon, you only watch Silence of the Lambs, check this out. It is fantastic. I heard it was adapted into the Hannibal series, but in general, that it is a great movie, despite it being directed by a horrible person. Up next, we have Ready Player One, infamous movie on the internet. It's directed by Steven Spielberg. It is adapted by the book. The whole pop culture, mess of a event movie. As for what I think about it, I think it's good. I know some people say it's a bad movie. It's just pop culture reference after pop culture reference. There's no story. There's no theme. Yada yada yada. I get it, but it's fun. I like the visuals. I like the direction by Spielberg. I love the action. Yes, it is just fan service to be in general, but honestly, it's pretty good. Yes, the main protagonist is lame. Yes, the ending like theme of this is what the movie's about is kind of stupid. The romance is really bad. The villain is pretty generic. But it's, a fun popcorn movie, in my opinion. Like, you can put this, it's like a Netflix movie. Just watching don't take it super serious and just enjoy the nonsensical, like, bombastic, like, energy that's happening every now and then. The Shining scene, that's fantastic. Let me just drink a little bit. We have a few more movies to go. Here's another import movie. Reminiscence. Remember this movie? Reminiscing of it? Yeah, no. So this came out in 2021 during the summer. It had a horrible, horrible performance in the box office because 2021, Warner Bros. Released all their films on theaters and in HBO Max. And this film, also released at that time, had not a lot of marketing, had a great trailer in my opinion. The trailer was pretty good with the music and everything, but it also never really left a big impression on people. I watched it in IMAX actually before it got pulled from theaters. Not the best IMAX experience, but interesting enough. If you don't know what the movie is, it's about basically Hugh Jackman. Hugh Jackman's character, is in love with this girl, and he, can't seem to know where she's gone. She's disappeared, and he's trying to figure out what's happening with this movie. Also, before I continue, there is a nice note from the director, Lisa Joy, who is married to Jonathan Nolan, who's the brother of Christopher Nolan. They created Westworld. They are making the new Fallout show. I'm very excited for that. And yeah, in terms of this movie, so it is basically Hugh Jackman trying to figure out. It's a mystery movie. What happened to this girl? Sort of a film noir sci-fi twist of that type of trope. A lot of critics hate it for some reason because they felt it was derivative of that type of genre, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, that's kind of the point though. Film noir is not exactly the most, it's a bit of a cliche genre, but that's kind of the point. And the whole, setting is interesting. I like the flood in Miami, where global warming has rise, like this sort of dystopic future where it's not like ruined. It's not like the world is ruined. It's just that rising seawaters, people have to start adapting to how the city works now. Some of the action's cool, some of the direction and cinematography is great. The ending is very, very bittersweet. It's not a fun movie, really. It's like it is a very, somber film, and I think that's why it works, in my opinion. Like, it's not a fun action, movie with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. It's like a very, it's very much like a 1940s like crime noir that isn't a very happy movie, happy ending type of story. So I really liked it. I would say check it out. I think it's on HBO Max, I think, or Max it's called, or Crave, wherever you're watching. But yeah, I would say Reminiscence is a pretty decent watch if you want to see it. Up next is Reservoir Dogs, Quentin Tarantino's first film. I think it's better than a lot of his other films. I think it's my third favorite film that he did. The setup and the story is simple but great. The opening scene is like one of my favorite Tarantino Tarantino scenes in general. The cast of characters are fun, but also crazy. The ending's so that is a very intense ending. The whole fact that it's mainly just set in one room. Yes, there are some scenes outside the room, but it's also very simplistic. Like, this is the most indie Tarantino film you can get, because it's his first film and it's just the way he had to make the film on a budget. And it's so creative. It's so, the dialogue was there. Like, it is it is, Tarantino's, definitive. I wouldn't say it's his best film. I think Django and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is probably better in my opinion. But Reservoir Dogs set a standard for his films, for his future releases. Just a sec to finish some water here. Next up, we have a strange one. Resident Evil, Welcome to Raccoon City. This was the latest Resident Evil adaptation, and it has got a lot of mixed responses. Some people like it, some people hate it. In my opinion, it is an average movie, but I also think it's not I consider it one of the better adaptations, but for a reason. This film was trying to be way too ambitious for its own good. The director has said that he wanted to adapt 2 games, but with a bigger budget, with a bigger length. But Sony wanted to slash the budget, make it shorter, and have to have some compromises. I'm not going to go into everything because I don't want this entire video just to be talking about why Resident Evil: Welcome to Raccoon City is a decent movie. But in general, I think the direction is pretty good. I think the general production value is surprisingly strong. This cost $25 million, and they squeeze in a bunch. Yes, you have some compromise, particularly with the CGI at the end, with the CGI in the end, the finale in general. And you have some disappointing designs for like William Afton. There's no Nemesis. There's no Mr. X. There's no Tyrant. So you do have to have some drawbacks. There are some changes that weren't the best for a narrative, but I understand why they changed it for the sake of the movie, like Leon's character and stuff. And in general, it's a fun movie. I also think the music is pretty good. Like there's a good music, good direction. Like the actors for the most part do a decent job. Like I don't know. It's a decent. I would say it's a decent movie. Like it's better than the Paul W.S. Anderson Resident Evil films. I'll say that. And I wouldn't mind if they improve on the movie with a sequel. I don't know what they are doing. I heard they were doing a sequel, but we have to wait and see. I will say though, it's weird that they filmed this movie in Sudbury of all places, which is a smaller like a town practically instead of an actual city, because Raccoon City is like Raccoon out town. I don't know why. It's weird. Up next is The Revenant. This is a great movie. I know some people are like, it's weird that Leonardo DiCaprio won an Oscar for this one. Yeah, but I also think he did a pretty good job. I wouldn't say, oh my god, his character is so interesting, but just the fact of what he had to do for the making of this movie. It sucks also that the director hasn't really done anything new as of late. Maybe his next film will be outstanding. We'll have to see. But it's strange that he hasn't really done anything much. Tom Hardy is, interesting choice to be in this movie as the villain. In general, like if you know this movie, it's just this guy has to come, who is left for dead, revenge movie, has to survive the elements and, get his revenge against the guy who killed his family, sort of. I don't want to go all into details, but it's a fantastically directed film. Like in just the survival aspect of the movie is what makes it stand out. If it was just a typical revenge movie where Leonardo DiCaprio was left behind, he comes back and kills the guy, it'll be kind of whatever. But the survival aspect of it and the fact that DiCaprio did a lot of things for that production makes it stand out. Up next is Rocketman. Not much to say. This is a pretty solid biopic. Not that everything's perfect. They don't need to show the first, the marriage of the girl. That was kind of pointless. And the portrayal of the father is also not that good. Like, it's meant to be way more negative than it is. But in Taron, and I'm not super into Taron Egerton as an actor, but I do think he's a pretty good choice for Elton John. The direction's a bit more flashy than Bohemian Rhapsody. This movie got a lot of, comparisons with Bohemian Rhapsody. Oh, this is a better movie. In my opinion, I kind of prefer Bohemian Rhapsody, maybe because I prefer Queen's music over Elton John's music in general. But I wouldn't say put this as a negative against Rocketman. I think Rocketman is still a pretty good biopic, and I think it does the Elton John story for the most part a service. There's better biopics in my opinion. Malcolm X, and that's the thing. But biopics typically are usually good. But this one is definitely one of the more interesting directions. And the last movie we have for today, I mean, if we can call it a movie, because that's the thing. It's going to be debatable, and that is Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. So a few years ago, they released a bunch of classic Christmas shorts, from the 60s on 4K, like Frosty the Snowman, for example. The only one I cared for, there was a collection of this, but I didn't want to go for the collection. I just went for the classic Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer because as a kid, I loved it. I love Bambi. I love deer for some reason. So I love Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Obviously, if you watch it now, it's not exactly the most aged. It has a bit of issues. There's also the fact that I'm not going to say, yeah, you should spend your money to get this. It's a 53-minute film. It's debatable to call it a full-length film that is deserving on 4K. It looks good on 4K. I'll say that. But it's just a weird addition to, have it that it's only available. You can just buy this by itself for almost not a full price 4K. They did make it a bit cheaper, but it was still, not exactly a cheap film to get on 4K. But in general, I think Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is a it's the classic. It's a cute classic. It's a charming film, even though it may not be the most aged. It may not age the best. Granted, I think a lot of things don't age the best, over time. And with that, that ends the video. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned, and I'll see you guys next time. Hope you have a very nice day.